Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Rachel Adams. I'm the Chief Curator and Director of Programs here at Bemis Center, and I'm sitting alongside Raven Halfmoon, our lovely exhibiting artist. Just before we get started, a few tiny announcements, which you may have seen as you were sitting. We have a few other performances happening next week in honor of Paul Stephen Benjamin's exhibition, which I hope some of you have had some time to look at. We have Seth Parker Woods coming to do a performance that is inspired by and playing the music of the artist and composer Julius Eastman. That is on Thursday night. And then on Saturday, Paul is actually going to be in this space doing a performance at 2:00. So if you're interested, please come back for that. He'll be doing one of his typewriting performances, so it'll be really great. And then these exhibitions close on September 15th, so still a little bit of time to come back to remind your friends that they're still on view. Or if you are teaching a class and you want to bring a tour for your students, please reach out. We would love to do that. So, okay. So I'm not going to really introduce Raven because I feel like she needs no introduction, but I just wanted to kind of start this off by kind of explaining how the show came to be here at Bemis. I feel like it was almost 4 years ago when I came across Raven's work and was super excited. And then we did a Zoom studio visit while you were at Archie Bray. Walking me around, showing me everything, and talking about your work. And I was really excited. And in thinking about Bemis and our legacy with ceramics, it really made sense to bring Raven here and be able to do a large show of her work. But during that, imagining in my head and thinking through things, I reached back out to her gallery and asked, is there any other curators that are interested in Raven's work? Just knowing how big the work is and logistically thinking, it would be great if it didn't just exist in one place. And that's when they told me that Amy Smith-Stewart from the Aldrich was interested also, and I was like, oh, I know Amy, great. So basically the rest is history. We talked together and decided to do the show together and asked Raven to do it, and she said yes, which was great. And then we also made a really lovely book. And so it was at the Aldrich last year and then came here to Bemis this summer. And then we'll be traveling to a couple of other venues, which we will announce soon, hopefully, which is very exciting. So the show will have a long life and more people will get to see it. But you can always say you saw it here. So that's the best, personally. Okay, so I think that's a good kind of overview. We're going to talk a little bit about influences that Raven draws on for her practice. We're going to talk about her practice. We're going to talk about older work, and we're also going to have time for some questions at the end. So think about what you want to ask. Okay, and we're going to kind of slowly go through these slides, but I'm just going to kick it off with a question, and then we'll just talk. It'll just get us started. So how do the histories and cultural traditions of the Caddo people shape your artistic vision and the themes you explore in your work? And I thought that would be a good one with this slide behind us. So
I know, I should use a microphone. I'm from Oklahoma. And I am an enrolled citizen of the Caddo Nation, which is one of the 4 tribes that are originally from Oklahoma. And then on this slide, too, you can see all the other tribes that are now based in Oklahoma with removal. We are actually the state that has the most federally recognized tribes in the whole country. And so there's a lot of tribal history there. And I think I got a lot of historically, culturally, a lot of that background from my parents. So even though I am enrolled with the Caddo Nation. I am also Oto, Delaware, and Choctaw, but with government systems and how things are set up, you can only be federally recognized with one tribe. However, that's also changing right now, which is pretty exciting. You can have a dual citizenship with other tribes. But I'm Oto on my dad's side and Choctaw and Delaware and Caddo on my mom's side. And both of my parents have a pretty strong connection, as we like to say, in Indian country. My dad works for the chief of the Cherokee Nation, and my mom now helps me, which I'm very thankful for, but she also does work for the Caddos. I grew up so on this slide, you can see Caddos right here where the Wichitas in Delaware are. My mom worked for the Caddo Nation for 10 plus years when I was younger. And she's also very heavily involved in the museum world. So she's helped put together, she was the director of the Choctaw Cultural Center. And then she was also studied archaeology and anthropology and worked for NAGPRA. That was with the Caddo Nation. So I feel like I kind of just grew up having that history and being around the tribe and, really understanding that importance to share knowledge, keep that knowledge present, and then, continue to share within my own work. And so I think my parents have had, and my family has had a pretty strong influence of, continuing that. And this is also, we kind of went by it, but this is in Binger, Oklahoma, where the tribe is. And this is our regalia. And you'll notice some of these. So on the back of this first woman here is called a dushido. And it's this kind of triangle looking piece that has ribbon work. It's made out of velvet and mirrors. I just want to point that out because I put that on a lot of my work. So I've taken a lot of influence just being around these dances, doing all these cultural things. This has always had an influence on, how I look at the world, how I've come to understand my own place in it, where I fit within my tribe, society, within the art world. So those are kind of,
Yeah, and it's really great that in our first gallery we have the piece Caddo dancing in Binger. Mm-hmm. So you can kind of, you're sort of having this conversation at one of these dances. And then also we have the family names piece in the first gallery, which we can talk about in a little bit. But kind of going back to, other sort of influences that you've taken note of, I wanted to switch to these next slides.
Yeah. So, my mom and dad having a pretty impactful role for me when I was younger. They have always worked for tribal organizations. Again, I mentioned NAGPRA. And so my mom has worked on these sites, archaeological sites, where these were huge mounds that have been excavated. And so this is actually, I believe this is, this is Spiro Mound. So this is in Oklahoma. And it's about, I want to say 15,000 years old, and it's the ancestors of Caddos. And this has always been a huge influence, even within my work. When I went to school, I went to the University of Arkansas, and I have a double bachelor's in anthropology and art. And so I was taking these anthropology courses, and because Caddos, our homelands are originally from Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas, before there were state borders. And so because of that, I was able to go to the archaeological survey and hold pottery that my ancestors have made that were excavated from these mounds that were thousands of years old. And so a big influence has always been the iconography on pots, a lot of, And so you can see here, so on the right side is an actual excavated pot, and then on the left side is a pot that I made when I was I believe I was a sophomore in college. So really taking the imagery, iconography of the things that I was seeing, studying in school, taking anthropology courses, but then at the same time making contemporary artwork. And things that really spoke to my experience. Another really big influence for me is, not only Caddos were, our ancestors were mound builders. So because of this, this is the Great Serpent Mound that's in Ohio. There's also Moundville that is in Alabama. And some of these larger earthworks have always taken influence to what I do. I love the idea of building something that takes more than just yourself. It's really a whole community that has to make all of this. It's a whole tribe, it's a whole people. And so I think just when I was in school and literally studying these sites, but then physically going out with my parents and visiting them, I wanted to make something that, spoke to this same truth, this kind of monolithic thinking, and a whole civilization making something. And so I think having this basis, this is where kind of my work is born.
Yeah. I also am thinking about just the scale of this, right? I mean, we're looking at these overhead shots and then thinking about the scale of other things, other historical, ancient works that you've noted and that we've talked about. Like, and if you read the essay in the gallery guide, we note about that too, and sort of thinking about these Olmec heads and the Easter Island and like, I really loved one time what you said is that you just love being sort of dwarfed by nature, and that you sort of think about making your work in that a little bit. And maybe you can kind of talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah. I think, being in the presence, and I don't even think it needs to be, I haven't seen even the Easter Island heads in person, or the Moai is what they're called now. But seeing photos of this just blew my mind when I was 19, 20 years old and in school, and that it was made by people here. Like, that was insane. Although now they're saying it's ancient aliens. You never know. I don't know. There's always something with like the pyramids. I'm like, why? Because brown people made it? Yeah. But so I think with the Olmec heads and even these Moai sculptures, it was just something that it's out of this world. It's large. It takes more than just yourself. You start thinking about all these like technical things, how many people it took to make it, to even move them, to carve it. And so I always wanted to instill that within my work. And I think it's not just these pieces, but other times when I have felt like that has been in galleries, has been in museums. Like, I consider museums and gallery spaces almost like my church. It's where I like go to learn and educate myself and ask questions. And so even, compared to this, I went to the MoMA for the first time when I was really young and saw like Monet's water lilies. And it just blew my mind. I mean, it just makes you quiet for a second, and not even a sec. I mean, I was in there for 15 minutes just in awe. And, it's spaces like that and moments like that I really want my work to do the same thing, of just like a quietness, kind of serene. They're almost supposed to feel spiritual, powerful. And I think you can get these, again, I can get the same feeling even in spaces where I used to live in Montana, and even going to like Yellowstone and Glacier National Park and floating the river and seeing these huge mountains and things that were made, like, it's just, we're so small compared to those things. And so I think I've taken a lot of influence from, things that make you feel quiet.
Yeah, I mean, I get that sense, I'm very lucky to be able to be here on days when we're not even open, and just kind of sitting with some of your work during those times, that scale play is really great. And I mean, outside, obviously, with flag bearer is even more of that sense. But yeah, I'm sort of, thinking as we're going through these slides, we have, these images right here, and it's sort of like nodding more to the details and like what is actually being shown. And I really love that you included this because right on I'm so bad with direction when I'm looking at it, but on one side we have, a Cato piece, and on the other we have one of yours, and sort of, again, like how we had the two pots earlier, but this is sort of starting to think about faces, right, and who these people are. So can you talk about remember when you made this one and sort of what you were thinking about?
Yeah, I made this piece in 2015 or 2016. But again, so this is a Cato effigy pot that is thousands of years old, that has this, and this is how faces came into play with me too, and big heads. Not only that, but again, going back to like the Olmec, the Moai heads. And so I wanted to take these same designs that were, and the same imagery that was on this pot, but make it more contemporary to something that I was making, something that felt a little bit more personal to me. And so really, it's also sharing these, it's also sharing this imagery that hasn't been seen, that most people, don't know what a lot of these designs are, because if you look at a lot of Mississippian pottery, which is what Catos are, it's Mississippian era pottery, but we have a lot of these same designs that are on all of our pots. And so I really wanted to like take capture of that and really take like a snapshot and then put it on my own work that I was making in a contemporary way. So it's me kind of like merging these two worlds, making something known again.
And do you remember, do you know like what some of these designs, what they were sort of trying to say with them, like what they were kind of portraying?
That's the part that's still up for debate. You can read, there's many different anthropological books, or like even my anthropology professor, there's debates on what it could all mean. But there is definitely, everything is like characterized and narrowed down into like certain eras, times, and Mississippian, which is Caddo ancestors. This is where all our pots came from. So you can see it's a lot of this, like where we pulled our clay and how we sgraffito is what you call like etch in basically the design. It has like literally, like if you were to zoom in on this piece, it's like little hashtag etchings on there. And even the clay itself is pulled from the Red River, which is always usually a redder clay body, a dark chocolate clay body. So these are reasons why I use, if you see a lot of my work, and in this piece on the right specifically too, why I glaze in dark, why I use a lot of stoneware clay bodies. I like clay that is really gritty and heavy because that's what Caddos used. We tempered in like mussel shell into our pots as well, and then they're just basically they just get fired in a pit, so they got to be pretty strong to withstand like that much heat and then to cure and be glazed. So yeah.
Moving, forward a little bit in your practice and thinking a little bit about your practice and having that background of what you just mentioned about the firing and the clay body, I was really, always drawn to the works here, this one, and I think there's another one later in the slideshow of sort of these questions or these phrases that you started painting on the work. And, as obviously many of you know who've seen the show, you see Raven's signature on all of the works that are in the galleries. But we don't have any of the works like this here. But I would love you to kind of talk about some of these phrases. The "Do you speak Indian?" You know, you don't look native. You know, sort of these maybe stereotypical questions, and sort of what you were thinking about when you were deciding to put those on there.
Yeah, so I think with even making the work that I make, making the work that I create, I think it can be confusing for people because it is pretty contemporary. I think just even being native, there's this idea of what native art looks like, or the stereotypical, probably what native art can be. And so I feel like my work is really fighting against that. It's pretty contemporary. It asks these sorts of questions. And so with this piece, "Do you speak Indian?" it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek way for me to kind of revert back onto the audience what I get asked. And, you know, I kind of look at these pieces as pieces that speak for me when I'm not there. They're, you know, why I make art is for these beings to go out into the world and to help learn, educate, be pillars of conversation, be, you know, be pieces where people can ask questions and feel safe to do so. But yeah, like, "You don't look native," again, and "Do you speak Indian?" These are questions that I have been asked. And so it's a way for me to, you know, kind of put it back, and a way for me to get out how I feel about those questions. And, you know, it's not, sadly, unfortunately, a lot of those questions are not even being rude. It's just, I don't think people understand that probably is rude to ask. And so it's just, it's, you know, it's all growing, it's all learning, it's all growing. These pieces are meant to, you know, really stand in place for me when I'm not there. They're meant to stand in spaces and be a presence and share history, culture.
Yeah, and I think there's, you know, it's part of also a little bit of your anthropology background, right? Of like the idea of asking questions and why people, you know, make certain marks or you know, leave certain traces, and paying homage to, you know, the people that have come before you, your ancestors, in all of the tribes that you're from. And yeah, and sort of, I think just I like the idea of it sort of standing in place of you. And, you know, you talk a lot about your work, you know, coming from a matrilineal society, basically, you know, thinking about, you know, your mom and your grandmothers and the women that came before you, and then the women that'll come after you, right? And sort of having this kind of being in two different places, right? Being in the past and the future, and sort of solidifying that in the space with the work. So yeah, I think that's really important. This piece, I really would like. You need to talk about this piece because it always. I love it, but it's so creepy to me in a good way. But I know there's a story here that you want to tell. So,
well, if people haven't noticed, I kind of have a dark side, as I'm like dressed like a goth vampire. But yeah, so this is a piece based on the Caddo origin story. Caddo origin story. Our people came from under the earth, underground, and a leader came and said, "I will show you the way. Here's the way to the light." And his name was Tasha, which means wolf in Caddo. And so all of our people followed him out, and we had drums, seeds, there was tobacco, like all the things you need for our tribe, except the one rule he said was, "Don't look back or the hole will close." And so everyone was following him out. And then, of course, Tasha, a wolf, turned around and looked, and the hole closed up. And so with our origin story, there's always people and our ancestors. Some of them are underground, but then some people made it to the light. And so I made this piece based on that. And it's a wolf with hands coming into the light, but then some people are still trapped in there. But yeah, I think I also wanted to make a wolf really bad. So.
Yeah. And, I skipped over this one, which is just a really great piece. And it's hard for me to tell the scale on it. I realized that I never realized how big it is.
I want to say it's 3 feet,
Yeah,
2 feet, maybe 2 feet. Yeah.
But yeah, you put in a bunch of artists that you're influenced by, and we'll go through these kind of quickly, but T.C. Cannon is an artist.
Cannon's my god.
Is your god, yes. And we also have Fritz Shoulder here, two Native artists, both who are not with us any longer. But yeah, do you want to kind of talk a little bit about some of these?
Yeah, and I'll just mention quickly. So, I always pay homage to the people that have come before me. There's a lot of artists and people that have been on this same trajectory of sharing contemporary Native life. And so these are two artists that I really have been inspired by, who I love. T.C. Cannon is also Caddo. And so these are people that, again, I just grew up loving, knowing. I love the palettes. I love the colors. I love everything that they talk about conceptually within the work. It's funny, I say I love the colors and then I don't use any color within my work. But I do. I think that's why I appreciate it so much, is because I'm not a very colorful person. And so I definitely love to see people use a good color palette. And yeah, T.C. Cannon and Fritz Shoulder talk about both those things. Fritz Shoulder was actually pretty dark, even though he uses a lot of pinks and greens. And I mean, he was in the war. I mean, even his, figures and his horses, they're like in shadow, they're dark, they're kind of grotesque. So he always talks about this duality of being Native and in the contemporary world and what that looks like. And so I think I have definitely taken influence from them. I always pay homage to them. They're amazing.
Yeah. And I realize we're going to go through some more, but we didn't talk about the fact that, as an artist, you started off as a, drawing and painting. That was really your practice. And so all of the artists that you've put in here are painters, which is so interesting to me.
They are. Yeah. I think, I also, when I was in school, I'm like, not only do I have a bachelor's in anthropology, but I also studied painting. I have a painting and ceramics. So I started off painting, and then I feel like I have now just painted instead of on canvas. It's now on 3D sculptural objects. But, this is
Francis
Bacon. I almost said Kevin Bacon. I was like,
there's probably a 6
Kevin
degrees
Bacon
of Francis Bacon.
No, I love Francis Bacon. Again, I'm realizing dark. Yeah, he's dark too. Oh, Modigliani. I mean, Modigliani, just when I was in school and looking at the figure, because I talk about the figure a lot and so he was a huge influence for me. When I went to the Met when I was young, I saw Van Gogh's work for the first time in person, and I saw Modigliani's work for the first time in person. And so if you look at my sculptures, he kind of like elongates the neck, and he doesn't do pupils in a lot of his work. He kind of like blacks them out, and that's how, if you look at my pieces, I don't do eyeballs, and I have a lot of work where all the necks and like the torsos, everything is elongated, and I picked that up from him. He
did it the best, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then we have Rothko.
Oh, I love Rothko. I actually did not love Rothko for a long time, but then when I was in school, I had to write my senior art history thesis on him, and it was like a 12-page paper that I did in 3 days. I'm like, Adderall. But I had to write a huge paper on him. And, after I read I had to read books and everything he said about his work. And I just found such an appreciation for what he does, how he does it, and, using color blocking to feel emotion. And so within my own work, I do the exact same thing. I feel like there's a direct tie to how he paints to how I glaze. It's very, all the pieces in this show, black, white, and red, color blocked, either diagonal, horizontal, and that's because of him.
Yeah. I definitely see it. I mean, I didn't really think about that beforehand, but
I know it's funny. Most people, I feel like I love to show my influences, because once people see them, they're like, oh, wow, I see that exactly in your work.
Have you been to the Rothko Chapel?
That's the only one I haven't.
You have to go.
It's all black, right?
It's black, but there's browns and blues in it. It's kind of. But in thinking about when you talked about that galleries were your church. I mean, that's the one.
That's the one.
Literally is.
Gotta go.
But I think it's also about the spacing, the way that he spaces out in that space could be really exciting for you to think about your figures in that way, right? Like all sort of facing each other and having conversations. So that's another show we should do. I just have it in my head right now. I'm just going to say it.
Yes.
Anyway, we're going to move on to more commercial influences, because that's a big part of your work as well. And I'm going to flip through some of these, but you can kind of talk about the influence of fashion.
So, super into, how we think about branding, how we think about fashion right now. So a lot of my work is taking, as you said, it's these two worlds, taking these historical ties, taking this iconography, things that I've grown up with, and then making it sort of relevant to today, things that I'm super interested in, which is tattoos, jewelry, music, TikTok, Instagram. And so I feel like we're just over flooded with just materialistic world. And so I really wanted to put that within my artwork. To me, that's the things that I'm going through, things that I'm interested in. And I think it all ties into being a millennial. I'm a millennial. But
I always love this one with the Chanel and thinking about Caddo culture, right?
Well, and also, thinking about these fashion houses and how they brand, Louis Vuitton and Chanel. It's the same thing that I was talking about when talking about pottery, like Mississippian era. It's crazy because, so this tattoo, for example, is a tattoo that's on most pots, and it's a Caddo design, and it exactly stages it to a time, a date, a certain pot, and everyone knows this to be the Red River from Mississippian era, which is a Caddoan pot. And so to me, studying that and then realizing that fashion houses are kind of doing the same thing, it's time stamping it. It's just such it's all connected. And so I really wanted to do that. I really wanted to stamp those things within my work. It's stamping a time and place, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a lot about, it's a nice way to kind of be able to, I guess exactly what you said. I don't even think I have to say anything else, actually. This is Teddy B.
Oh, yeah.
Puppy dog, by the way. Have to always have the dogs in the slides. And I think my next question, as we're going into this next slide, is to think about your practice over the past few years. So much of the work that we have here at Bemis was made while you were in residencies, and we are sitting in a building that houses a residency. So I kind of wanted to ask you and have you tell the audience about your experience with residencies and how that has influenced and changed your work too. And I think I talked about you the other day as a goldfish because you grow to your environment, which I think is what goldfish do. I can't remember if that's correct, but
Oh yeah, I say because I have to use very big kilns. There's like few large kilns in the nation. Once you're talking about something over 6 feet, there's not very many. And I feel like every place that I've gone, residency to residency, I was like, I'm a goldfish in my tank. Like I just build to that size and I'm like, all right, next place. I need something bigger.
so this is Archie Bray
Yes.
in Montana, which was a big one that you did for many years, right? Long-term resident there.
Yep. So I was there for 3 years, and that's where I made a lot of the work that you'll see in the exhibitions. They had like a 5.5 foot kiln, and so actually most of the pieces I made were from Archie Bray. And working with ceramics when I came out of school, being in clay and being a clay artist. I feel weird. I'm not a clay artist. I just consider myself an artist, but I work a lot in clay. So, however, when you come out of school, kilns are very expensive. And so you have to go to different residencies to be able to use the facilities, equipment to make work because I can't afford, a kiln that's 5 feet tall. It's thousands and thousands of dollars. And so I kind of did the residency route. Excuse me. And I went to the Archie Bray Foundation in Montana, and that's where I kind of built all of these large-scale pieces. And not only, did I max out the kiln at 5.5 feet, I was like, let's stack them on top of each other. Like I was like, let's go even bigger. So we got forklifts involved. I had a lot of people help me along the way. That's what's nice about this work is that a lot of people have helped. And even, conceptually looking at all these pieces, you'll notice hey, there's the Red River design.
Yep.
I was like, hey.
There it is.
There it is. But you'll see that on a lot of my work. But so in a lot of this work, you'll see multifaceted faces, beings, eyes. And for me, that's all these different perspectives. That's all these different generations that have been a part of the work. These are my great-grandmother's stories that my grandma has passed down, running from boarding schools and even studying my own history, being in school and getting these stories from my mom. So it's always it's generational, and that's always tied into the work with, again, the multiple eyes, multiple faces. It's kind of my way to physically manifest this idea of multiplicity. Like, it's not just myself. Like, I feel like I carry a lot of people with me, and it's me sharing all of that.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And I think you see that and you feel that, especially in the ones like Hasanai, where it has, the double stack piece that's in the front, or even like Star Sister, and you have the sort of two sides. A lot of times there's a dark and a light side to all of us, but there's a past and a present and a past and a future, and sort of thinking about those dichotomies and how they make up who you are, really. Can you talk about the Caddo Woman Warrior pieces? This piece, we have one here in the front, in the gallery too, as well, and the horses, and sort of, there was a time that you were making a lot more of those as well. So horses for me have always been an important aspect just within my own work personally. My first job was my grandma had horses growing up, and so I grew up riding. And then my first job was as a wrangler in Oklahoma at a camp for 7 years. But not only that, they're just so powerful. It's great energy, but the horses in general have such a strong tie to not only caddos, but tribes. Like historically with traveling, agriculture, they've helped with everything. So I really wanted to make work that showed how I feel about horses. And, I always say, like,
love horses, but horses are also tied into this politically about blood quantum, and so same with canines, with dogs and horses and Native people. We all have to deal with this idea of blood quantum and how much is there. And so the horses for me are also kind of a reference to that and how I feel about it. This piece is titled Quarter Horse, Quarter Indian. And so, yeah, right now I also I have 2 horses, so it's coming full circle. I love it. That's literally me right now on my horse.
That's you, yeah.
Yeah. Until I get bucked off. It's like, oh, they'll humble you though.
Yeah.
I'm like, watch out riding horses. They will humble you.
I know they're so big.
They're so big.
Yeah, but so wonderful.
Yeah.
This is at UC Long Beach where Flag Bearer was made. So as you can see, here's Raven gold fishing it up in
So
Long Beach.
Long Beach has an 8-foot kiln. And of course I was like, how can I get out there?
So you made a lot of work, and that was like 2 years ago, 2 summers ago. So that was right when we were kind of starting to discuss this show and a commission of your biggest piece, which is on our front dock.
It's crazy.
And
I look at that piece, I'm like, I did that? That's crazy.
she's a little big, but
Yeah.
she's very present. It's been
And
really
then
lovely
even
having
looking
her.
at it, I'm like, never again. I mean, well, even from these photos, you can see I had, 5 people help me full time, and we're like out in the sun, and it was amazing though. I mean, it's the best experience ever, but just hard physically.
Yeah.
All this work is, I mean, I feel like you can see it within all my pieces, every thumbprint, every coil that's laid down. I mean, it is very personal. I mean, you can see my exact fingerprints.
Oh, yeah.
In every single piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's intense.
Somebody could lift your fingerprint off of there and do something bad. These are some of the works that you made in Long Beach too, where you started kind of referencing cowgirl culture.
Yeah.
Growing up in Oklahoma, and also, here, I can't remember the name of this one.
America's Sweetheart.
America's Sweetheart.
Yeah.
Because stars are also something that you have included in your work over time, and thinking about, obviously the American flag, but, other uses for stars, like your bracelet right now, and your ring and your tattoo stars. So
Like I'm going too hard in the stars.
I know, but we love stars. It's good.
That might have to be my next show.
Maybe.
Stars. But yeah, I think, same with this whole idea that I talked about, again, going back to these images that you see on pottery, these fashion houses. It's like we have this idea of like what the star is too, which to me, it's like America. It's very, you think of like our flag, but also stars as an image has been used within Native cultures, thousands of years prior. And so I really like reusing that idea of the star. I mean, especially, and we'll probably jump into this, but the show titled Flags of Our Mothers, it's kind of like reusing, to me, referencing what that is, referencing the flag, but then also sharing, probably histories that haven't been heard before and using it in a kind of a different way.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I feel like, in thinking about this show and this piece, which is the one that's outside, I think I put, here we go, where you can see it outside. For you, it feels like, or for me anyway, I'm kind of thinking about your work as sort of, thinking about, building this community, right? This sort of like new community, this futurism, right? Thinking we have to look at what happened before in order to move forward. And sometimes we make huge mistakes, and sometimes we make small mistakes, and sometimes we get it right. And it's a mixture of all of those things. And, I think a lot of sort of maybe indigenous futurism is thinking about like a new nations, stronger, being together and also moving forward together. And that's for me, like a lot of the work in this show is thinking about that. It's referencing family, it's referencing community, it's referencing sisterhood, it's referencing, your tie to the earth and the animals with the horses, all of these things. And right out front, we have flag bearer, right? She is the sort of sentinel in a sense, right? Or the siren, and she's beckoning you and also warding you off at the same time. Like for me, she can be both like menacing and also really warm, depending on the light also when it's outside, which is interesting because that didn't happen necessarily at the Aldrich when she was inside, because it's, always the same kind of lighting. So I've been like thinking about that a lot. I don't know what your thoughts are, but having her out there has like every day I'm like, oh, today I feel this with her,
I'm like, women. We're like, come on. Then we're like, no. No, yeah, I totally agree. She's she's pretty powerful. She, sometimes it can be inviting, but it can also maybe ward off.
Yeah, we gotta
be all those things.
We have to take care
Especially
of ourselves.
At night. You guys have blue lights out here, or purple lights, so I like it at night.
Yeah, I need to get a picture of that actually. Yeah. Jillian, I'm putting that out in the world right now. We have to get a nighttime picture of flag bearer. I think that might be. This is just one of your catalogs, and then we did a catalog for the show as well. So if anyone's interested, you can buy those on Amazon or through Raven's website too. But yeah, I think I want people to ask questions. So
okay.
Is there anything else we didn't talk about? But maybe we'll have a question and it'll lead to something. I feel like we did.
Glazing, technical things.
I was just thinking that I'm going to go back.
I hand painted all these, and part of me is like, whoa. This is a different way.
This one is the Rothko one for me, for sure.
Oh,
right?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. Well, does the audience have any questions from the audience? Please raise your hand. Dewan.
How does it feel to install your work in Omaha specifically? And as you've learned about the context of the city, its indigenous roots and namesake, the significance of its placement here now?
Yeah, actually, so my grandparents and my dad, they're Oto, and this is Oto homelands. So, and Omaha is an Oto word. And coming in, that's something that I think about even on the drive in, and when I had a show here, that was really important to me because I feel like I've had shows and, I'm thankful that I've been able to show my work in places like LA and New York, but I'm also very committed. Like I really am trying to get my work in places where like my family's at, and especially in Omaha, in Oklahoma, which is something we're working on. It's been pretty amazing. Being from the Midwest, I call Oklahoma the South, but we're like South Midwest, South, I don't know. Yeah. But just even being in this area and driving through Kansas and like getting to know Omaha, I love it. I kind of want to move here. It's been pretty special, and just being with the community. And last time we were here, it was it was Ribbons and
Healing Ribbons. We did a program with Healing Ribbons from Lincoln. Yeah.
There's a huge Native community here and a big population, and so that for me has been pretty important to bring it back home. Bring it back to the places that I want to be showing, and to me, that's important. So it's been great. Yeah, I love it here.
Joe?
Yo. Yeah. Yeah, emotional labor can be a lot. You hear stories and these things that I personally have experienced on top of everything that my family has told me. So I feel like again, how I mentioned earlier, like I feel like I carry a lot with me. It's weird because I make my work, but I feel like I'm just the hands that make it. I feel like there's so much more behind me. I'm just like the representative in this lifetime. But it really feels so generational. There's so many people backing it. And again, I'm just like the physical hands that can make it happen. But emotionally, it can be tough. I mean, before when I was in residencies, you have other people to talk to, other artists to bounce things off of, and probably even, other artists going through the same things. But right now, more recently, I've been in my own studio for the past year, which I'm very thankful for. But at the same time, I was like, oh, I'm lonely. Like I kind of miss being, although it's funny, when I was at residencies, I was like, leave me alone. Like I was just like a loner. But then now that I am alone, I'm like, oh, I kind of miss people. So having like that emotional toll can be hard. So I recently got a therapist. Woo! I'm like, horses in therapy will change your life. And then physically, I'm doing, I have hired help, which is really nice. It's me trying to figure out what places do I need to, I think as an artist, we question where do we need to exert the energy, like what's important do I need to physically make this, or can someone else glaze for me? Do I actually need to build, or can someone else roll coils? And so asking all of these questions has been important. And I have a massage therapist now, so that's been helpful too. I was like, business write-off.
Yeah, I mean,
It's for my back.
I don't know if anyone realizes how heavy
Oh my God.
like wet clay is, and then how heavy dry clay is. So.
Yeah, so Flag Bearer, the one out there, I think it's close to 7,000 pounds of clay. Wow. That we, like, it's hand squeezed, coiled.
And then now it's 2,500 pounds or something.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
it's
crazy.
insane. Yeah, after I made Flag Bearer and a lot of the pieces in the show, I had to that was a long break. Yeah. I feel like I work like that though. I don't know. I love to hear different, how artists work, because I feel like a lot of people have 9 to 5s, and I know artists that work 9 to 5, but then in the past, I was like, I'm feeling creative. I'm going to burn from both ends until I'm dead. And then cause I was like, I'm feeling the juice. I'm on it. Like I want to make work. But then, recently when I've been in therapy, they're like, is that healthy? I was like, I don't know. Maybe it's not actually. I was like, maybe I should just work 4 hours a day and get a schedule. But yeah, I don't know. I love talking all the artist life and finding inspiration. So anyways, that was a long-winded answer. But yeah, I think we all got to do what we can to stay healthy mentally, physically, all the things.
No, rest is very important, and it's hard to give yourself that time. Like yes. Joe and I talked about that yesterday. So yes, back there.
Yes. So actually, most of my family is artistic, just not in the visual arts. But I would say, yeah, everyone, I mean, there's drawing and writing and people who play instruments. My brother's a gamer. I'm like, it's very artistic. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, it's definitely like there's in the artistic realm, just not as much visual arts. Yeah, but it's there. It's always been supported.
Peter, and then the person after Peter.
So in your sort of mythological stories of your people, do you see yourself as a dark person who's not a deer, didn't come out of the hole?
Ooh, maybe. We're getting deep.
Just wear white.
I do. Actually, I've been wearing a lot of white this summer. Yeah, I kind of got it. I wear a lot of black and white. And that goes back to, you'll see in my pieces too, a lot of it is half black, half white. It's, I don't know. I think there's always this duality. I feel like there's a lot of duality within my work. My name being Halfmoon, also, you know, kind of sharing history, but at the same time trying to be relevant within today. How do those two worlds meet? But then, you know, kind of also all beings have light and dark and being okay with that. I have just learned recently that like shadow is also okay. Like shadow doesn't exist without light, light doesn't exist without shadow. And so I think all of this has kind of come into play within the work and this idea of like duality and light and dark. And we kind of have to have both. Like, you can't be all dark or all, I don't know, you can't be all light either. There's always, yes, sleeping and working, yes. Unless I have a deadline, no sleeping. No.
We had a question in the back, yeah.
Hi.
Hey.
So I'm curious about kind of like, I feel like a lot of this work is very clear messaging, like very direct messaging and understandable, but then also looking at some of those historical plots that have more abstracted designs and then translating them to figurative work. And I'm curious about the relationship for you between being really like clear, direct, maybe figurative, and also still using kind of abstracted messaging and patterns.
Yeah, I think a lot of those patterns and a lot of the iconography on those pots, I mean, some of them are so old, right, that not even, like even Caddo elders, like we don't have, I mean, there's an idea of what it means. Again, like this is the Red River, you can see that same design on pots, but a lot of it is like up for interpretation too, because not only there was different designs of the Red River, but it can all mean different things within even different families that made that then. And so I'm kind of taking that same design and redoing it into my own interpretation. Like a lot of those pieces that you'll see, I'm, you know, using this Red River design or some of those like neck tattoos that you'll see. Caddos were really into tattoos. I'm like, oh, no wonder. But then I'll take those same designs and like reinterpret it in a way that makes sense to me or like something that I want to use. And so I think I always like to leave within my work, there should be some questioning. There should be some places where the audience should bring their own experiences. I don't want to tell you how to feel about the work, how to tell you how to feel a certain way. That's something that a person needs to bring to the work as well. It's all about personal experiences. So I'm very actually, well, you didn't ask me this, which is good. But a lot of people will say directly, like, what does this piece mean? And what does this piece mean? And to me, that's like, well, I don't want to tell you what that means because that's up to you. Like, I made it, but you know, that I feel like that closes off what you could bring to it as well. So, I think it's a balance. I feel like that's such a tough question because some artists are like very direct with their messaging of like, here, this is exactly what this means. And I don't know. Which is good too. I love it all.
Open for interpretation is always good.
Open for interpretation.
But I do think, you know, there's so much of your personal story in the work for sure. And that's...
Open for interpretation unless you're wrong. I'm kidding. Just kidding.
Do we have any other? Oh, I see another hand.
Would you like to share the tattoos that we have on your body?
Oh, sure. Let me take my clothes off. No, I'm kidding. I have. All of my tattoos are Oklahoma themed, and where I've lived, they're all animals from where I'm from. So actually, that's a cattle pot with a peregrine falcon because there's a ton of them in Oklahoma. Speaking of duality, that's a half moon with that same cross. I say cross, but it's like a 4-direction symbol. And then this is an alligator that's Spyro themed, like meaning it's woodcut. It's supposed to look like an etching that's on shells that you can find in the mounds in Oklahoma. And I have a bison from when I lived I got it in Montana, but there was bison obviously in Oklahoma. So yeah, it's just, it's a mix of things. I have a diamondback rattlesnake, a raven, and a magpie for Montana. So yeah, I actually just got a tattoo today in Omaha. Yeah. I feel like where I'm, it's important to, I don't know, for me, I was like, I got to get a piece here when I'm in Omaha.
Yeah,
So it's been fun. Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
That
Go
was a
get
good question.
tattoos.
Yeah, go get tattoos.
I'm kidding. They hurt. They're really expensive. I'm like, I'm done.
Never. Yes, Bart.
What did you get them?
Oh, I got this that says manifest. I'm like spiritual and shit. I'm like manifest. And I got finger tattoos here too. Actually, Louis Vuitton.
Mm-hmm.
That's how committed I am, guys. I got a Louis Vuitton tattoo.
You love it. I mean, what are you going to do?
What are you gonna do? I don't know. I think of the body as just like a beautiful vessel. Doesn't last forever. We're just these little skin bags walking around. So let's make mine beautiful. In my mind.
It is beautiful.
She has a tattoo too.
I have many, yeah. They're fun, but they are expensive. Yes.
Yes.
I'm just curious, like, Louis Vuitton, like, is that a person? I don't even know.
Oh, it's it's a fashion brand?
Have they bought before?
No, I wish. I know. If anyone knows them, I'm trying to do a deal. I'm trying to do a collab. I'm like, I don't know them. But it would be cool though. I would love to do that. Yeah, it'd be fun.
One day.
One day. Manifest.
Manifest.
It will happen one day.
Justin, do you have a question?
No.
Coming on your first traffic solo show.
Oh, you're reading a question. This is serious. Oh my God.
Where's your work going to next?
Oh.
Yes. The next plans.
Yes. So, sorry. I have like my next show.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I have a show in New York in September. If anyone's going to be in New York. Yes, and then this show's going to go to Austin.
But how's the body work changing?
Oh, he asked, how's the body of work changing? The show in New York has bronze and stone. Ooh, I'm excited. Yeah. Yeah, a 9-foot bronze piece and a 6-foot stone piece. Speaking, going back to the Olmec heads and the Moai heads, I was like, I'm doing stone too. Yeah, I'm excited. It's cool. It's gonna be epic.
Yeah, so you don't always have to be a clay artist.
No, that's why I know. I always feel weird saying, I hate pinching. Well, some artists feel differently. I'm always like, feel like I'm gonna hurt other artists' feelings or something. I'm like, no, some artists feel, but I just call myself an artist. I don't like to say a ceramic artist because I work in other things. I paint too, you know?
I see a hand in the back.
I was interested with the addition of materials. How do you think that bronze adds to the narrative you're working on?
Yeah. So like with Flag Bearer, like making that work, It was hard and physically exhausting, but also ceramic that large. There's few kilns you can work in. Actually, there's a kiln here. Someone put a good word in for me. It's 13 feet tall. But so I had to make that piece in 3 sections, and it's just kind of, excuse my language, but a bitch, because you have to like stack it all, and it's fragile, and clay, luckily I fire and build strong enough that weather elements don't have there's not an issue, but bronze is just so much stronger. It's durable. It can withstand, it can fall over. People can't chip it. It can't break. It can, all the things. It could probably go through basically anything, a tsunami, a hurricane, a tornado.
I don't know. Flag Bearer went through a tornado and it's fine.
True, she did. Powerful. But so I think it's just, for me, it was just a next step of using other materials where you can build, can build something that's more sturdy, durable, and probably can withstand elements. Sometimes clay, it can be a little fragile.
Yeah, and I think it kind of talks about the evolution of your practice in terms of the evolution of like being a woman and like getting stronger as you get older. I believe that's true. So
nice.
It's like
I like
utilizing, you start with the clay,
right.
which is strong, and it has obviously lasted for
it's true
thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But yet, then taking the step to the bronze and the stone too, and sort of having those elements. I think it's great.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see it.
Yes. Also, just being adaptive to new things. I feel like even Native people have always been adaptive. We're like, new people have come over. How can we? It's just adapting to a new, I got to a certain level. I can't use clay for all the things anymore. So, yeah, it's what's next.
Yes, Peter.
You want to leave clay in your past?
No.
Okay.
No, I love clay.
Just doesn't always sort of in the background?
Yeah. It'll always be there. I love clay. I just like how tactile it is. I'm a Cancer. So woohoo, we're sad. No, that's what everyone says about Cancers. I'm like, no, we're not. But something about the tactility of clay and like leaving those fingerprints, and like it can pick up every single thing I lay down. Oh, I love it. I'll never leave it. Yeah.
That might be a good place to end.
Yay.
Thank you so
everybody.
much,
Thank you for
Raven.
coming.
And thanks to everyone for being here. We'll be open for a few more minutes, but we are gonna be closing soon. So if you want to take a last peek, and otherwise we will hopefully see you all on Thursday night.
Jello shots at the bar. I'm kidding.